Chicago, Gary, and Milwaukee. Three cities bound not just by highways, but by history, hardship, and a shared shadow of crime. This isn't just about violence, it's about systems, industrial collapse, racial segregation, political corruption. It's a triangle of influence that stretches across state lines and across decades. Let's trace the corridor of crime and discover how past decisions still echo through every corner of this region. In the 1920s, Chicago was the nerve center of America's organized crime. Al Capone's Chicago outfit was more than a gang, it was a government of its own. They didn't just control bootlegging, they controlled judges. They owned police. They bought neighborhoods. But Chicago wasn't alone. The outfit had roots in Gary, Indiana, just 30 minutes southeast, where the steel mills ran hot and the unions could be bought. And to the north in Milwaukee, the Balistreri crime family built a quieter empire, running gambling, extortion, and influence under the radar. Three cities, three power nodes, one criminal web stretching across state borders. By the 1960s and 70s, the mob's grip began to loosen, but crime didn't disappear. It evolved. Out of Chicago's south and west sides rose a new wave street gangs, formed in public housing projects and broken neighborhoods. Gangs like the Vice Lords, the Gangster Disciples, and the Latin Kings. They weren't small time. They had leadership, hierarchies, territories. Some even sought nonprofit status and ran community programs. But that changed when heroin arrived. What began as protection and identity soon became a multinational business, a business powered by desperation and supplied by cartels. As Chicago's gangs grew richer, their influence spread. Gary became a key outpost. Milwaukee became a distribution hub, and the gangs expanded like franchises, mirroring corporate models. No boardrooms, just corners. No quarterly reports, just body counts. What followed was an arms race. As the drug money grew, so did the firepower. And the victims weren't just rival gang members. They were neighbors, children, entire communities caught in the crossfire. But where did all this start? To understand the present, you have to return to the boom and bust of the industrial Midwest. Gary was born as a company town, built by United States Steel. In the 1950s, its mill employed 30,000 men. People had union jobs, decent wages, and pride. Chicago was a manufacturing beast. Milwaukee turned out machinery and beer on a scale that rivaled entire nations. Then, it all fell apart. Automation, global competition, political disinvestment. By the 1980s, factories closed. Jobs vanished. Cities hollowed out. Gary's population dropped by nearly half. Entire neighborhoods became ghost towns. And when jobs disappeared, the underground economy took their place. But it wasn't just about economics. Segregation played its part. All three cities, Chicago, Gary, Milwaukee, enforced redlining. Black families were locked into crumbling neighborhoods, denied loans, denied mobility, and denied opportunity. As white families fled to the suburbs, poverty pulled into tighter and tighter pockets. And in those pockets, crime incubated, not because people were inherently criminal, but because the systems around them gave them little choice. Survival replaced opportunity. And in many cases, crime became the only functioning economy. By the early 1990s, the statistics painted a grim picture. Chicago's murder rate soared. Milwaukee's spiked too. But Gary earned the darkest title, Murder Capital of America. In 1993, Gary's homicide rate reached nearly 91 per 100,000 people, nearly 10 times the national average. It wasn't a fluke. It was the inevitable result of economic collapse, racial segregation, and a vacuum of state support. And all along this corridor, I-90 and I-94 moved the tools of this underground war. Drugs flowed north. Guns flowed south. Mexican cartels funneled heroin, cocaine, and meth up into Chicago. From there, it moved to Gary, Milwaukee, and beyond. Meanwhile, Indiana's lax gun laws turned Gary into a shopping mall for firepower. Straw purchasers bought guns legally, then sold them illegally in Chicago and Milwaukee. Traffickers knew the highways. They knew the weak spots. And law enforcement was always one step behind. Chicago gangs operated cells in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's crews bought product in Chicago. Gary was both a supplier and a battleground. In one case, a Milwaukee heroin ringleader was making weekly runs to Chicago. The feds watched it happen for months. This wasn't rogue crime. It was coordinated, networked, and generational. Law enforcement responded with task forces, federal indictments, multi-city sting operations. In the 2000s, RICO laws were used to indict entire gangs, not just individuals. The family secrets trial took down remnants of the outfit. FBI operations targeted the gangster disciples and vice lords. Operation Legend deployed hundreds of agents into hotspots like Chicago and Milwaukee. Sometimes it worked, but often it felt like cutting off one head of a hydra only for two more to grow. And the cost was steep. Mass incarceration, over-policing, broken trust in black communities. Milwaukee has the highest incarceration rate for black men in the U.S. Chicago has neighborhoods that lost entire generations to prison. And Gary's tax base, eroded by flight and fear, can barely support its own police department. What began as a response to crime sometimes created more of it. Still, in the shadows of that legacy, hope persists. Community-led violence interruption programs are gaining ground. Gary is seeing slow but real declines in homicides. Milwaukee is pushing for housing equity and job access. Chicago is investing in violence prevention, not just policing. These are long-term strategies, because the problem isn't just crime. It's history, it's policy, it's trauma, and it's all connected. The gang feud in Milwaukee, it might have started in Chicago. A drug bust in Gary, it might impact supply in Wisconsin. The corridor is real, and so is the damage. But if the harm traveled that path, maybe the healing can too. Chicago, Gary, and Milwaukee. Not just cities on a map, but chapters in the same story. If we want safer streets, we have to learn that story page by page, route by route. Only then can we close this corridor of crime and begin building something new.